de Uninorte Co. No olvides suscribirte a nuestro canal.
Good evening. On behalf of the fifth version of Cátedra Global, we want to give you a warm welcome to the event Strengthening Collaboration Through Virtual Exchanges, Pains and Gains. My name is Catherine Acuña. I'm the coordinator for internationalization at home at Uninorte at the International Cooperation Office. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Maria Clara Albor from our Center for Teaching Excellence, CEDU, coordinator for our institutional program, Aulas Interconectadas. For this event, we're honored to have the special participation of Alicia Juncos from Center College, Nasek Jawad from University of South Florida, Rodrigo Serrao from Hope College, Yvonne Hernandez from University of South Florida, as well as Dr. Barbara Smith, Lourdes Rey, Director of our Foreign Language Department at Universidad del Norte, Maria Auxiliadora Gonzalez from our Faculty of Law, Political Science and International Relations at Universidad del Norte, Claudia Guevara and Maria Jacqueline Exposito from our Nursing Department at Universidad del Norte.
Today's experiences are part of our program Aulas Interconectadas, led by Uninorte's Center for Teaching Excellence, CEDU, with the support of the International Cooperation Office. This program was created 2 years ago for the promotion of pedagogical innovation through collaboration in a specific course with international peers. In this program, teachers from different countries use the Coil method to plan, develop, and evaluate together collaborative activities and projects, creating international teams between their students that allow them to gain global skills in the classroom.
And because study abroad is still limited to a small minority of students, and even more now due to the global pandemic, international mobility has suffered a major setback at all of our institutions. Aulas Interconectadas represents a great opportunity for all students to have an international experience from home. Currently, this program is one of the initiatives that Uninorte is betting on for the following years to achieve a more inclusive internationalization process. And as you mentioned, Maria Clara, allow all of our students to gain additional global skills within their classrooms.
For this year, we have around 23 teachers participating from our different faculties, and we are very interested in helping this program grow by building capacity among our administrative and academic staff to be able to expand our scope and reach more students.
To begin today's event, we would like to welcome now one of Uninorte's pioneers in the development of these experiences, Lourdes Rey, and her international peer, Alicia Juncos from Center College. Alicia has a PhD in linguistics from the University of Kentucky, and currently she is a Spanish and linguistics professor at Center College. Lourdes Rey is the director of the Department of Foreign Languages and an associate professor of our Language Institute. Professor Rey has actively participated in activities to strengthen the internationalization of the university with higher education institutions in the United States, Europe, and Latin America in the area of education and learning of foreign languages. Remember, you can write your questions in the chat, and at the end of each intervention, our speakers will answer them. We also invite you all to subscribe to the YouTube channel Uninorte Académico to stay connected for more of Cátedra Global. We'll leave you now with our first guest.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Maria Clara, for this invitation. We are very happy to be here today sharing our experience. I'm going to share here our presentation that we have prepared for you and that we have titled International Online Collaboration, a Tool to Promote the Development of Communicative and Intercultural Competences. This is, we are Alicia Juncos, as you indicated. Alicia is a visiting professor in the Spanish department at Center College. I'm Lourdes Rey, Associate Professor, Universidad del Norte, and right now I'm the Director of the Department of Foreign Languages. If you are wondering how we met, we met through our colleague Jenny Ballard, who was my former Coil partner, and she also is a teacher at Center College, but she won a scholarship, a Fulbright scholarship in 2019, and she came to Colombia, to Uninorte, and worked with us for 6 months. So after that time here, we've been continuing collaborating, and that's one of the main gains of these Coil experiences. Also, we would like to share a little bit about some important institutional information in our context that have facilitated the implementation of this type of activities in our institution. On one side at Uninorte, there are several policies that have helped us in this implementation. And the first one is that all the students who are completing a major at Uninorte, they have to show proficiency in a foreign language as a graduation requirement. So it's important for Uninorte that our students can speak a foreign language. And second, we have a strong policy of internationalization. As Catherine was mentioning, we've been working with dual degrees, with mobility opportunities, but sometimes these opportunities are not available for everybody, so it's only a small percentage of the students who can benefit from them. So that's why the last 3-4 years, the Universidad del Norte has started to focus on activities that can reach the majority of our students without the need to leave the campus, to what we call internationalization at home opportunities. And last year, obviously, we had even more complications of mobility with the health conditions, right? Last, I would like to say that I have participated in this virtual exchange with Alicia with 2 of my courses. Last year, I participated with a group of level 8 students that were learning English. And this semester, I'm participating with a group of students who are learning to become teachers with the subject English language teaching. Now, Alicia will tell about her institution.
Yeah. Hello, thank you, Lourdes. So Center College has a similar background as Uninorte. We put a lot of focus in languages. We also have a foreign language requirement, so all students need to take at least 4 semesters of a foreign language. We have 9 different languages. And Center College also has a lot of focus on study abroad. 85% of our students study abroad. They have several opportunities, 1 month stays of study abroad or a semester studying abroad. Due to the pandemic, as you mentioned, and the problems of mobility, it is very important to include all students in these experiences, and Coil has given students the possibility of having conversations with foreign speakers, with students that are native speakers. So these language exchanges have made our classes really enriching. Yes. Okay, so basically Lourdes and I have been collaborating for 2 semesters. Last year we started, Lourdes was teaching a class on intercultural communication, and I was teaching a class in advanced composition and grammar. Our class focus was different, but we managed finding points that they were similar. Now, my class was it had a very broad topic, so I could bring to my students any topic. The focus of the class was practicing more writing, so that was easy to communicate. Lourdes could manage and could cover her main points, and I was willing to adapt content. This semester, the situation is similar because I'm teaching an advanced conversation class, and she's teaching a language, English language teaching. So we will be covering topics about how students learn languages, how my students are learning Spanish and how her students are learning English. So what some things that we needed to take into account, or that they were really important, were aligning learning outcomes and assessment. So we needed to have similar learning outcomes. Assessment was a little bit different because Lourdes we did the same assessment, but in different modes. So for my writing class, I did more like writing activities, and she did more reflections, like oral reflections. So we changed a little bit, but at the end, the outcomes were the same. We also had to design activities and tools. Normally, at the beginning of the semester, we discuss how many activities do we want to plan. And normally we do like 3 or 4 activities, not too much, because these activities take a little bit of time to design and to implement. After we implement the activities, we always do some kind of evaluation with our students, oral evaluation or written evaluation, where they can express or tell us how was the experience, what they have learned, how they can improve this experience. And finally, I haven't done this collecting data for research, but I know Jenny Ballard, my colleague, and Lourdes work on collecting data and research, and what are the benefits of Coil. Yeah, some of our learning outcomes in the Coil classroom that we had in the past were building intercultural competence through social and culture issues. So our activities had this focus. No, last semester we had an activity where students had to talk about main issues in their communities and then exchange information. So through these activities, they were building intercultural competence. They also, another learning outcome is to use collaborative strategies to learn. Basically, students are sharing information and they are learning through collaboration. And finally, they enhance language skills because they are, my students are practicing their Spanish with Lourdes students, and the opposite. No, Lourdes students are practicing their English. So they are learning not only culture, but also language. And this is an example of some of the activities we did last semester. So for activity number 1, they did like a Zoom call, and after that, my students have to write a personal biography of their partner. I think Lourdes did something more orally, no? So the assessment was the same, but the mode was different. So they had to talk about how was their city, how is the family, comparing and contrasting their daily life and their context. For activity number 2, it was based on describing social issues in their context. So students talked about main issues and problems in their communities. This was a very interesting activity because my students, many of them come from small rural areas in Kentucky, so they don't really know much about what's going on in other countries. So they learned a lot about other social issues in Colombia. So they had the conversation, and then each of them wrote a paper based on the social issue that their partner had told them. And then on the reflection part, they basically said what they have learned, how was the process, the learning process, and how was the experience. And for activity number 3, it was connected to activity number 2. Basically was after talking about the social issue, what solutions can we find? Or they had to propose a kind of activity or plan on how to fix those problems or how to help our communities. So it was hands-on, not only describing the issue, but also proposing some solutions. After that, they had to tell their Colombian partner or their American partner what was a possible solution or a possible plan to solve these issues.
Yes, thank you. We are going to continue now with the gains and pains, as the title of this conversation is about. As you have just mentioned, we have been collecting data from our students in order to really find out what is the impact of this experience on their learning. And that's why we have organized the information in 3 areas: students' perception, the development of communicative and intercultural competences, and something that we have named personal gains. In terms of students' perceptions, it's very important to highlight that most of the students consider this a very positive experience and that it really enhanced their motivation, not only to participate in the activity, but also to attend classes. And because it really gave them the opportunity to build new relationships with people that otherwise they wouldn't be able to meet. In terms of the development of the communicative and intercultural competences, it's important to acknowledge that learning a language, or when you are teaching a language, we teachers don't have many opportunities to make our students use language for a real communicative purpose. But through this experience, it was really the opportunity. So they really got to communicate, use the language they were learning to find information from their peers. In terms of the intercultural competence, it was interesting to see that they started to gain awareness of this, the similarities and differences between the Colombian and the American culture. And probably, and I will say that in the pain, it starts like a kind of pain because they have to adapt to each other. They have to know how the other things and the concepts they have about several aspects of life. So in the end, it was very enriching for them to see that although they are similar, they also are different. And in this aspect, it was also interesting to see that my students, and they have voiced this aspect that they got to learn more about the American culture, the real American culture, rather than the stereotypes or rather than the things that they see on TV or on the news. And they felt that they had the opportunity to show the real Colombian culture to their peers rather than the stereotypes and everything that people say about Colombians in the world. So it was really something that they mentioned several times and that they were really happy of having had the opportunity to get to know a person, a real American person. And in terms of personal gains, also when you are learning a foreign language, you are in the process and sometimes you feel you haven't learned enough, that you cannot communicate, that you will make lots of mistakes. So the fact that they had to use the language helped them to become aware of their capacity of communicating in the foreign language. So they really felt that they could do it, and that enhanced their confidence as learners, as the second point shows, because they knew that they were able to be understood and to understand the others. Also, they mentioned that the fact that they had to work together with their peers to give a solution or to think about proposals for our community was a mutual benefit. They had to agree on things, they had to reach consensus, they had to work together. That was very beneficial for them because they are very used to work with the same peers they have had all their life at the university, and this time it was a new experience, learning to work with someone completely new for them. Last but not least, the fact that only, as you saw in our previous slides, there were two synchronic meetings, one at the beginning and one at the end. Those were the times in which we teachers were there with them. The rest of the interactions, they had to do it on their own. So they had to schedule meetings, they had to prepare information, they have to do research. So they really acknowledge becoming more autonomous and less dependent on the teacher to try to solve any situation or complete the tasks that they were assigned. Last, I'm gonna briefly talk about the pace, which in the end, probably they become gains, but this is something also like to have in the scope of our future collaborations. As I said, initially, when you get to work with a person from another culture, there should be some sort of cultural clash. And things like the concepts of time, what is punctuality for you, what is punctuality for me, or the fact that some of my students want to become friends with the American student right away. So we had to discuss these aspects in class and to find strategies on how to overcome these issues that they were facing. And as I said, and as I showed earlier, it became afterwards a game. Also, the fact that, as Alicia was mentioning, our students help like language partners for each other. My students at the beginning felt like it was a lot for them, that they didn't know how to give feedback, for example, a language, that they didn't want to hear their peer saying that something was wrong. So we also had to address that issue in class. So I gave them tips on how to correct or how to build this relationship in which they decide how each other would like to be corrected. Also important is that both the students and teachers need to have sufficient access to technology to be able to collaborate. This is important because, especially now in the pandemics, like some of our students, they have moved back to their towns where they don't have enough internet or the service is very poor. Sometimes the completion of this activity is affected. So it's important that on one side that we decide that the technology that is going to be used is not that complex, and second that they all know what is their capacity to participate technologically speaking in this activity. On the side of the teacher, it's important to mention that we need to make adjustments, like Alicia mentioned. Like in our cases, we had two different classes. You are never going to find like the same class, your same class, with your same learning outcomes. That's going to be impossible. So when you find a partner, you really have to make adjustments to your classes. And that implies that activities must be planned in advance so you can make the necessary adjustments and inform your students, and that the students also get prepared for the activities. Last but not least, also for me, and I know for Alicia and Jenny, who is our other peer, it's important that we can document and evaluate the impact of this experience, because I think that we are constructing new knowledge here. And I know that the more we talk about it, the more we discuss about it, we will be also informing other teachers in other contexts who are willing to do the same. So in sum, it has been a very pleasant activity working with Alicia, and I'm very happy. My students are always very motivated, and I know that Alicia's students are also very engaged. So that's what we had to share with you. So if you have any questions or anything that you would like to say, you are very welcome.
May I just say that I love that part, that what started as a game became a game. That is key, and it's probably going to be a common aspect in all the experiences.
Absolutely. You always have to look like these small problems become something that you need to learn how to solve.
Thank you, Lourdes and Alicia. Well, for all our audience, remember you can write your questions in chat. So I have one question. Could this type of activity be done at graduate level? Any recommendations in doing so?
Alicia, you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I think these type of activities can be done in any discipline and any kind of level. It's just sharing with another person, a learning experience. So it's having a conversation. We are doing this because we teach languages, but if you teach anthropology, politics, you can learn about other countries. So it's super enriching. I would, you just have to plan ahead and find a common topic, and I think it's worth it for any kind of subject or level. I don't know, Lourdes, what do you think?
Yeah, I just want to add that we have had in our master's program, we have had some experiences with some universities in the United States with the methodology class, and we matched two methodology classes at the graduate level, and it was very successful experience. So as Alicia says, we can do it at any level. The fact is that you have to identify your partner and design the activities.
Thank you. And maybe you can tell us what were students' insights, some student insight from at the end of the activity? You have?
Oh, like reflections?
Yes.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, most of them, some of them don't like it, but most of them, 95%, they're super interested in knowing more about the culture. They establish a personal relationship in many cases, and they just say that, they learned a lot. They want to keep not only practice their Spanish, but they learn cultural knowledge, and they want to keep the interest for traveling abroad and visiting other countries increases a lot. Or maybe, they have more interest on foreign music, foreign film. So it opens like a new window in their world. That's where like most of the comments.
Yeah, I have to say that I had a previous experience with SUNY, Coil, and they applied for a grant, and we had a group of 6-7 students visiting Uninorte like in 2018, and that was wonderful. Those students were so happy to be here and to see in real life what they were learning with their students. They are, as Alicia said, they are always very motivated.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Yeah. Okay. Now we would like to continue with the experiences of Claudia Guevara, Maria Exposito from Universidad del Norte, and Yvonne Hernandez and Barbara Smith from USF. This presentation now will be done in English and also in Spanish. Welcome.
Buenas tardes. Bueno, es un gusto para nosotros.
Voy a presentarlas. Dr. Barbara Ann Smith is the Dean of Nursing at University of South Florida, has over 20 years of global health experience in numerous countries in Africa, several countries in the Caribbean, South and Central America, Southeast Asia, and Europe conducting research, providing education and clinical care and support. Dr. Yvonne Hernandez is Assistant Professor and Chief Officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Department of Nursing in University of South Florida. Dr. Hernandez is an Assistant Professor of Nursing with 20 years of experience in maternal child health. Research interests include developing innovative methods to improve maternal child health outcomes in the local and global community. She also has research projects. She has facilitated global nursing clinicals and lectured internationally related to her expertise and nursing research. Claudia Cecilia Guevara is a nurse and professor of the Department of Nursing and coordinator of the Family and Community Health specialization at Universidad del Norte. She has a master in nursing with emphasis on care for people and groups, a specialist in family health, a specialist in audit and quality in health. She has experience in promotion and prevention programs, community work with vulnerable women, children, and teenagers. She has participated in interdisciplinary projects directed to teenagers in the prevention of suicide and in pedagogical and international projects as a co-researcher. Dr. Maria Jacqueline Exposito is a nurse and also professor in the nursing program at Universidad del Norte. She has a Master of Nursing Science and PhD in Nursing Sciences. Dr. Exposito teaches in the areas of research and care for critical and chronic patients in undergraduate and graduate programs. She has more than 20 years of experience in palliative care services, which has led her to work with different international institutions in this area. Her research focuses on patients and their families who experience chronicity processes and end of life. She coordinates the nursing specialization in adult critical care at Universidad del Norte. She is also a senior researcher and director of the nursing research group at Universidad del Norte. I'll leave you with our speakers. Welcome.
Profesora Claudia, ¿pudo compartir la presentación?
Sí.
Perfect.
Buenas tardes. Bueno, es un gusto para mí compartir con ustedes el intercambio virtual global que se gestó en el año 2019 con la Universidad del Sur de la Florida, con nuestras compañeras de enfermería. Nuestra experiencia inició en el año 2019 cuando recibimos una visita por parte de las enfermeras de la USA y querían pues mirar de qué manera nosotros trabajamos, sobre todo en la parte comunitaria, surgiendo así pues las ganas de seguir trabajando, y el plan era que en el año 2020 íbamos a realizar pues un intercambio, el cual ellos iban a venir aquí a nuestra universidad con unos estudiantes, pero como surgió el momento de la pandemia, pues resulta que optamos por tener una primera experiencia virtual que se realizó en el 2020 a la luz de la asignatura Salud a los Colectivos, la cual pues yo coordino, y allí se conocieron los estudiantes, nos intercambiamos un poquito cómo era la dinámica que ellos tenían en cuanto a los cuidados comunitarios y la que teníamos aquí en Colombia en nuestra Universidad del Norte. De tal forma que pues ya comenzamos a trabajar y la profesora Ivonne se puso de acuerdo conmigo para iniciar este proceso en el que estamos caminando juntas, las dos universidades. Ivonne.
Sí, bueno, gracias. Voy a veces hablar en inglés, en español, pero voy a tratar de hacerlo todo en inglés. Let me try this. Sometimes I go back and forth, which is a great example of what we are living right now in this global virtual exchange that currently we are right in the middle of our first global virtual exchange program. So this program really initiated as Professora Claudia described, related to the pandemic and the halting of our planned trips. In addition to that, I had the privilege of attending the Coil workshop for nursing on behalf of USF Nursing. So given the experience that I had with the Coil methodology, the collaborative online international learning, and the study abroad trips that I had previously facilitated, and the current need to do a virtual opportunity, it kind of blended, and we were able to develop the global virtual exchange opportunity. And what this really is on my behalf, we're using it as part of our public health nursing clinical, which we were able to match and coincide with Uninorte, Professora Claudia's nursing students group as well. So that way we have students that are both receiving public health nursing clinical training and able to have them work together. We were able to develop a program that focused on looking at the Sustainable Developmental Goals, on coming and understanding that as a basis for the students to learn about the variations of certain health topics in the US, as well as in Colombia, as well as to learn about the different systems of healthcare. And what we've learned is that as we are in the middle of this global virtual exchange program, is that helping to facilitate this, some opportunities were language, and what can we do to help facilitate language? Our USF nursing students have access to a medical Spanish course that they were able to be enrolled in to help support some of this experience. The Uninorte students have some English as well through their nursing curriculum. And what can we do to help facilitate and meet that? And actually, we were able to, as we're moving through this experience, come up with the idea of a global peer that's been facilitated by Uninorte Language Department, which is a wonderful opportunity to help facilitate the peer-to-peer between the USF and Uninorte students, and to facilitate communication, and to also allow that global peer to have experience with translation. So that's been, that was a pain that ended up in a gain, and definitely something that we learned and that we are continually working with. In addition, I would also reiterate or share what was presented by the first group about the Wi-Fi differences and access, and we were able to find a platform that worked best so that our students can continue to work together, not only as we meet as groups between Uninorte and USF, but as they meet in smaller groups. So those have been some examples of how we developed this program, some pains, some gains, and overall, we're very happy to be able to facilitate this global virtual experience, because we know that the study abroad experiences are opportunities for our students to develop and have increased global awareness, so that we can continue and work towards creating global citizens, especially in regards to nursing and the nursing profession, because that's going to help and support our students to be able to care for diverse populations. It also allowed us to discuss social justice issues, and again, all coming across and united by the sustainable developmental health topics. And I think that's a little bit that I had about how we were able to really come to develop this. And we are excited. Again, we're about midway. I know that Profesora Claudia on the next slide is going to talk to you about kind of some of the steps and some of the meetings that we've had. Profesora Claudia.
Sí, gracias, Ivonne. Bueno, nosotros aquí, teniendo en cuenta lo que acaba de decir Ivonne, ha sido de verdad una experiencia maravillosa, tanto para los estudiantes como para nosotros los docentes. Pienso que la parte del idioma, a pesar de ser una condición especial, ha sido una fortaleza para nosotros, porque tanto los estudiantes de USAID como nuestros estudiantes de la Universidad del Norte están muy interesados en aprender pues el idioma que no manejan, que no es su lengua, y hemos contado con el apoyo, como dijo Ivonne, de los Global Peer, que han sido un acompañamiento excelente a través de la Oficina de Convenios Internacionales. De tal manera que nosotros comenzamos primero pues reuniéndonos todos los estudiantes y los profesores, donde realizamos una actividad rompehielo para que pues ellos se conocieran. Luego formamos grupos más pequeños de 6, 7 estudiantes para que entre ellos hicieran un encuentro para mirar cuáles son las similitudes, las diferencias que manejan los países, cómo es el sistema de salud de los dos países, que es algo muy interesante. Y a la luz de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, surgieran unas propuestas para hacer un trabajo o sacar un producto, que es en el que actualmente estamos trabajando. Hemos trabajado, como dice Ivonne, en las plataformas tanto de la Universidad del Sur de la Florida como en la Universidad del Norte. Nuestros estudiantes están desarrollando su autonomía, porque se han reunido, han hecho grupos de WhatsApp, a pesar de que pues algunos no hablan inglés, los otros no hablan español, pero están aprendiendo. Y pues la idea es lo que decía mi compañera Ivonne, nosotros tengamos un buen resultado de este encuentro virtual, y es tener enfermeros globales que puedan cuidar en cualquier parte del mundo. Pienso que cuando ya nosotros terminemos esto, va a ser de mucho provecho para nuestros estudiantes, tanto los de Estados Unidos como los de Colombia. Pues la persona que nos ha movido, que es nuestra parte brillante, es la doctora Bárbara Smith, a la cual le agradezco mucho, porque es una persona que nos ha enseñado mucho. Entonces, pues quiero dejarlas con ellas un rato para que puedan deleitarse con sus aportes. Doctora Bárbara.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
We at USF, and I did want to thank you for the promotion to Dean. I'm actually the interim director of our global health program rather than dean, and that I served as interim dean for interim academic dean for a period of time. So anyhow, I wanted to make sure that I brought up the idea that travel is so important, and study abroad provides an incredible opportunity for our students. Mark Twain, the famous American author, back in the 1800s, stated that travel is lethal to bigotry, prejudice, and narrow-mindedness, and that the only way to develop wholesome views of the world, etc., is they cannot be acquired by vegetating. This is his words. They cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth. So it's extremely important, I believe, for all students to make sure they have an opportunity to travel, to study abroad, if at all possible. And in the time of COVID, or with those students who are unable to afford international travel, the global virtual exchange is extremely useful and important. And these experiences in nursing education help to increase cultural sensitivity, global health awareness, interconnectedness between us and other countries. And they help to prepare nursing professionals that are engaged and can serve as advocates and change agents. One of the things that Dr. Yvonne and I believe Claudia alluded to was the similarities and differences that are brought out by their study abroad or via this global virtual exchange. And as both of them, Claudia and Yvonne pointed out, there's a lot of pains, but the gains certainly outweigh the pains. One of the important things for those of us in Florida is that we have to remind people that 20% of our population in Florida speaks Spanish at home. Now, the Spanish speakers in Florida come from a variety of different locations. They come from Mexico, Puerto Rico, a number of the other Caribbean countries, Cuba. They also come from Central and South America, and I'm sure there are a few that come from Spain. But we have a variety of Hispanic cultures here in South Florida, and it's very important that our nurses be able and be prepared to deal with those different cultures. So it's so important for us to learn the differences between cultures and the healthcare systems in both of the countries, as well as the similarities and the differences. You know, I've been spending a fair amount of time learning about how COVID is different, and the treatment for COVID and the availability and access to vaccines are extremely different in these countries, but there are also some similarities. So it's important for us to work collaboratively with interprofessional colleagues as well. And I think this experience has been incredible in my assessment. And I'm so happy that both Claudia and Maria Exposito invited us to come to Uninorte and visit the Department of Infirmera and try to work out a wonderful experience for our students. Happened that COVID kind of got in the way, but I'm sure that as soon as we're all able to travel, we're going to be knocking on Uninorte's door again. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Ha sido una oportunidad excelente para nosotros. Esperamos pues que resolver cualquier pregunta que tengan.
Yes, we do have a question, and may I just add that this program was supposed to be study abroad program when it was first conceived, and because of the pandemic, it was moved to be a global virtual exchange. So we agree with what you've all mentioned. Study abroad is important, but this could develop in the future into faculty-led programs that would allow short-term mobility for students, which at the end becomes more accessible to students because it's cheaper, and combined with this type of program, it actually gains value. And it's not that we're not incentivizing, study abroad, but actually this might help boost that. So thank you. And the question that we had from the audience was about the main challenges for planning and implementing this activity. And I will add, how did you cope with it? Profesora, decíamos que este fue profesora Claudia, un programa que nació inicialmente como una experiencia de movilidad internacional y que al no poderse desarrollar por la pandemia, evolucionó en este programa de intercambio virtual que promete mucho y que seguramente más adelante se va a convertir en un programa que va a combinar la experiencia virtual con la movilidad. Y la pregunta del público iba referida a cuáles eran como los retos principales que se presentaron al planear e implementar la actividad, y le agregaríamos de cómo lo resolvieron, que ya algo han mencionado, pero si pueden, please elaborate on that.
Bueno, yo pienso que el principal reto para nosotros ha sido el idioma, porque pues nuestros estudiantes tenemos muy pocos que son bilingües, de tal manera que hemos tenido pues que ingeniárnoslas, pero como mencionaba, la Oficina de Convenios Internacionales a través de los Global Peer, que es un grupo de jóvenes pares de nuestros estudiantes que les ha hecho un gran acompañamiento, y en este momento son parte de nuestra experiencia, son parte fundamental. Pero así como ha sido de pronto pues uno de las dificultades, creo que es un reto, porque tanto para los estudiantes de USA como para los de la Universidad del Norte ha sido una motivación para que ellos quieran aprender otro idioma. Entonces, esa parte me parece muy importante. No sé, Ivonne, la doctora Bárbara.
So I would like to add that in addition to language is also the clinical timing or courses, and making sure that we're live in class at the same time, at least at the same semester. So coordinating that has been an issue. Second, because we are in a pandemic, they're not in clinical yet, but we are. So managing that as well. I think that because there's differences, I mean, it's going to add to the experience, because the students can share that we're in clinical. They'll say, how are you in clinical? And they can start talking about that in addition to everything else that they're doing related to their topic. So I think the timing, being in clinical and not in clinical also adds to the semester, or is a little bit different. Another opportunity I think that our students, that we've had to kind of overcome, is really making sure that so I would say that the study abroad, that we had planned the study abroad beforehand, helped us to have a stronger relationship with understanding the curriculum and finding a match. So we had that when we started, so that was good. And then the second part was innovating the projects or activities we were going to do to now be done in a virtual setting. But it's still ongoing, and we're getting feedback. And I'll just share with this group that this experience was accepted also as an abstract to present at the Sigma. It's an international nursing conference, so that's exciting too.
Thank you. We really want to thank all of you for being here with us today. It was a great presentation. I'm sure our viewers enjoyed it. And now we would like to welcome Professor Maria Gonzalez from Uninorte and Professor Nasek Jawad from University of South Florida. Dr. Nasek earned her PhD in government from the University of South Florida in the School of Interdisciplinary Global Studies in the area of international relations. Her research focuses on international criminal justice, restorative justice, and retributive justice. She has earned her degrees in different countries, including Malaysia, Lebanon, and the United States of America. Dr. Nasek has always considered herself a global citizen living across borders and understanding the value of cultural awareness. Professor Maria Gonzalez is an assistant professor at the Faculty of Law, Political Science, and International Relations at Uninorte. She obtained her PhD in government at the University of South Florida in 2019. She's part of the board of the Gender and Feminism section of the Latin American Studies Association, and with members of this section from many countries and universities from Latin America, she's developing interdisciplinary research about Venezuelan migrant women in Latin America. So thank you, and please continue. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Wait a minute, I'm trying to share the screen. Let me look. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Sorry. Okay, so today we want to present to all of you our experience with our project named Coil Olga, right? We have really important topics that we would like to share with you today. This is our presentation. I was in charge, or I am in charge of the class of international organizations here at Uninorte, and Dr. Nasek Jawad, she's in charge of women from the Middle East. But I will like that Dr. Nasek Jawad starts with how we met.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you all and share our experiences with Coil providing global education to our students. So how did this all started? It started during our PhD program. Dr. Gonzalez and I sat in our first seminar together, and me being born and raised in Syria, and she was born and raised in Colombia, we appreciated global education and we understood the value of global education, and we considered ourselves as global citizens. So this has been a passion for both of us. And when we heard about Coil, we did the training and we were just ready to have our students work on projects together. We graduated together, we're academic comrades, so it just was very natural for us to start this endeavor together.
Exactly. So now, like, going in depth to how this started. Well, we participated in Operation Global Action as academic coordinators of this project, and we realized that Operation Global Action as a main project from University of South Florida had a lot of gains, right? And we want to include this type of program in our curriculum, in our syllabus. So our program is based on Operation Global Action in the sense that our students have to get together and work based on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and develop a project, a research project based on that. But how we did for connecting the students, right? So first of all, we made the students to answer a global competency test in order to understand their interest of which of those SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, they were more interested in. So we grouped them according to their interest, research interest, and then we divided the groups, and we as professors became the facilitators during the projects for developing their research and their campaign, right? So I will explain a little bit more about what is the project about. Also, some technicalities that we had is that we create 2 small meetings and 2 big meetings, which means that we have a first big meeting with all our students at the beginning of the semester, and at the end of the project, we also had this other big meeting. But in between of these two big meetings, us as facilitators, we took our groups and had 2 small meetings just to kind of like checking how is the process, how they were developing their project, right? So how they developed the program and how we were able to connect our classes. Well, what we did is that we gave them options about the SDGs, right? And we told them that they need to select the SDGs and some situations that were happening on women of the Middle East. This then is the part of NASEC class, of Dr. Jawad's class. So we give them, for instance, some examples about SDG 3, women and COVID-19, maybe SDG 4 about quality of education. So we gave some examples about girls' education in Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. Then we have the SDG 5 with gender equality, and we list some examples. Of course, they were free to propose any other type of project that they would like to research, right? Or any other issue that they would like to research. So we gave some examples, and they need to select a topic. After that, they also need to understand the role of international organizations and NGOs in those particular problems that they were interested on. So, for instance, if they want to talk about gender equality in Syria, for instance, we will like them to analyze what is the role of the UN women in this area, right? So, in these terms, these research projects tries to cover materials from the class of Dr. Nasek Jawad and materials from my class, some content material. Additional to that, they have to create a way or a social campaign to spread their project. So this is like the creative part of this, and many of the students create Instagram webpage, TikToks, Facebook, podcasts. So we have a lot of interesting projects at the end, not only really well-structured written projects, but also really innovative and creative type of social media campaign.
So let's talk about the gains. So many benefits for a student, the immediate ones that basically just by participating in this project, they were qualified to for certified exchange class in Uninorte and global experience at USF. They became more competitive to apply for internship given this global experience. Other gains that they basically learned about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and that also adds to the benefits for them applying for jobs or internship in the future. And against all odds, they achieved, they participated in an international project. So given COVID, they're not able to travel or participate in study abroad program or exchange program, but through this project, they were able to work with other international students. So it's kind of like equivalent experience. And for Uninorte students, they were able to immerse in the English language 100%, working with students from the University of South Florida. They were able to network, and it's also a lifetime experience in their own words. Other benefits, basically the learning goals, which are the important things for us as educators. The first one is knowledge. So by participating in this project, our students were gaining knowledge about, again, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They were learning about issues pertaining to women in the Middle East. They were able to analyze the role of international organizations, how they're helping or contributing to solutions in terms of these issues, what are the gaps, and they were also coming up with a problem-based project of their own making. So it's very creative. There's a lot of learning involved. And they were able to design the project based on issues that they chose and look at the role of international organizations, how they can contribute to the work done by these international organizations, and then how can they spread awareness about these issues. So in addition to knowledge, they were able to develop some skills. Communication skills are keys in group projects. As we all know, they were also able to promote creative technological skills, given that they were developing their campaigns on social media. So there's a lot of technological skills involved there, in addition to verbal and written skills. And also the other benefit, which is where my heart is at and Dr. Gonzalez's heart is at, is gaining this cultural awareness and enhancing their global competencies. So working on these projects and communicating with team members from a different country and having this exposure to different culture, it's really the the most benefit that we were very excited about. So it strengthened their multicultural, interdisciplinary teamwork and cultivated their cultural awareness and sense of global responsibility. So many of our students in their reflections, they reflected about how this project helped them realize their agency and be aware about their role as individuals to contribute to the solution of global issues that is facing our world today. So they're not waiting on governments or corporations anymore. They understand the power that they have as global citizens in being part of the solution. And this is the greatest outcome that any educator can wish for. So there is no gain without pain, right? Some of the challenges we faced, as many of you mentioned, many of the challenges faced by other groups, time differences, right? So there was a lot of struggle in terms of scheduling our group meetings, the small group meetings, the class meetings. Also, some students were out of motivation. Going remotely or learning remotely has been really challenging for some students. They're not having the college experience, they're lacking motivation. So we had to work on that. And sometimes we would have one-on-one conversation just to boost students' motivation and give them hope that everything will be fine in the future. And also there were a few issues in terms of teamwork, right? Who's doing what and who's doing more than who. So with having those smaller groups allowed me and Dr. Gonzalez to facilitate and address these issues and work with students, motivate those who are lacking motivation, and try to work out differences in terms of understanding of each one's responsibility. And then the pains of the educators, I'm going to leave it to Dr. Gonzalez to talk about.
Well, the first time is allocating time. This needs a lot of prep, right? Not only previously, but also in the moment that we are developing the activities with the students. So we need to have some time management, as well as we have some time differences. So we needed to also know how to manage our timing, manage the groups, because some groups were more motivated than others, some were more cohesive than others. So you need to know how to manage them and to talk with them, right? And try to catch the problems or the miscommunications right away. The first meeting that you see that they are not connecting, try to help them to strengthen their communication, right? Then the balance with these class sessions and materials is important, because this was a section of our classes. So some of the materials that we want to teach maybe were out of the project or what we wanted to do. So trying to balance how much of this process, of this project between our classes will have what type of material, and how to deal with the other material that is not in the project. So how to deal with that, how to balance that was an important thing, at least for me, because I was not only looking for intergovernmental organizations or NGOs, I was analyzing theories and other things around international organizations, right? And then one of the most difficult ones was the camera policy. You know that as educators, we want students always to show up, because talking to a black square is very difficult sometimes. So camera policy was important for us, but some students didn't want to put their camera, so we have to be a little, try to convince them very nicely. And also when they saw that the other students were putting their cameras and turned their camera on, they were more motivated to do so. But yeah, they were kind of like a pain to ask the students all the time, please turn on your camera. We want to see your face. It's better if we see your face, So yeah. So here there are some winners, and this is Dr. Nasek.
So the project that took the first place in the OGA challenge, and around 200 projects participated from all over USF, and many students from Uninorte as well outside of our class. However, we're very happy that the project that came in the first place was from my group and Dr. Gonzalez group. And this group worked on the issue of educating rural women in Egypt. So it was very ambitious project. Again, this is a problem-based project. They recognized a problem in rural areas in Egypt where women are educated, but then they're not participating in the workforce. And there was a big question mark there. And the unique thing about this project is that students actually had a podcast. So they sat down and they had, in every episode, they had an issue or a new nuance that they wanted to discuss. And this is their way of spreading awareness about the issue and discussing it and engaging with audiences to find solutions. So they had around 4 or 5 episodes, and they're very engaging and discussing really nuanced perspectives on the issue. And they also created Instagram. Today it's all about visuals. So Instagram posts go a long way in spreading information campaign. And this project, as I said, won the first place in the OGA Challenge 2020.
Okay, great.
And very proud.
Yes, and then the other, I would love to show you some, but we don't have enough time. Right. And the other project that won was about the project of Egyptian female empowerment. This group created some chapters at TikTok that we know it is a really new type of platforms, and the students are, especially young generations, are this is a tool that is very popular among them. So they create different chapters to visualize what the conditions of women in Egypt was and how to empower them, and what the UN, particularly the UN women, was doing in their territory. So I don't know if we have enough time. That's why I don't show them, but for sure we're going to give the link to you all so you can access to them. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good. So now I will pass to talk or to be with Professor Rodrigo Serrao, who is the other professor that I'm working with right now.
Yes, we want to thank you both for your presentation. It was a very detailed presentation. Thank you. And we're going to have questions for you at the end. Now we want to continue with Professor Maria, and as you mentioned, with Professor Rodrigo Serrao from Hope College. Professor Serrao is an assistant professor of sociology in the Department of Sociology and Social Work at Hope College. His research, which has been published in journals in Brazil and the US, focuses on race and ethnicity, religion, and immigration. His next research project, called Why Latinx Project, will explore questions related to ethnic solidarity, privilege, racism, immigration, politics, and religion, among others. So now we welcome Professor Serrao.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sharing right now my screen. Okay, so this is another project that we are developing, Dr. Serrao and I, with Hope College, as you already know. So Dr. Rodrigo Serrao and I met actually in our PhDs, because he was doing a PhD at University of South Florida from sociology department, and I was from political science department. And we took some classes together in Latin America, and we realized about the importance of broader education, particularly in our region, but also in the US, while we were experiencing our PhD and experiencing our identity as Latinos in the US as well. So when actually Dr. Rodrigo called me one day and told me that he was interested in having their students exposed to an international experience, and that he was thinking how we could maybe connect our classes. And at that moment, I say, yes, let's do that. And I was already working with Dr. Nasek Jawad, so I have some very good experience about how this could turn turn in the future. So this was the first time that we started talking and we engaged on this project. We spent December and January we were working a lot together doing this project, and this is our results that we have for the moment. We have 2 big activities for our classroom. It is important to state that this class that I'm teaching is comparative political systems, and Rodrigo is teaching politics and society. So we realized that we have 3 main topics at the beginning of our syllabus that actually overlaps, which is power, state, and culture. Thus, we thought we should bring them around a conversation of these 3 main topics, and we actually select a same reading for both of our students, for Hope College in Michigan and Uninorte in Barranquilla. So this first activity is an international group meeting and discussion where the students have to have conversations and they have to record themselves answering some questions about each one of these topics. It lasts 4 weeks. Actually, we're in the 3rd week. We're missing 1 week for finishing this first activity. And they will have 4 encounters, and they have to send us a video and a reading part with the takeaways of this activity. At this point, we have seen the interactions of our students, and they are very positive, but we're going to talk that in a minute. Then the second activity is the one that we are going to develop next month, actually, which is the International Political Difference Conversation. We made a test, actually, in order to know the political position or what was the political ideology of our students. Maybe they are center, or they are left, or they are right in the political spectrum, and we will match them with the opposite of them. For instance, a student that is more inclined to left type of ideals, we will match him with a person that is more into the right spectrum of the political realm. So in that sense, what they have to do is that they have to actively engage in a conversation about points of difference. And what we expect with these is to listen, right? We want them to listen and attempt to understand each other's position. That's why the result that we are expecting from these activities are reflective paper, when they are able to listen and to try to understand those differences and where this point of view or these perspectives are coming from their other part. Of course, they are mixed. There are going to be students from Uninorte and Hope College doing this second activity. The first activity, we also put them in groups. There are like around 4 or 5 students per group, and they are mixed. We have Hope College students with Uninorte student having this conversation, but in this second activity will be just in pairs. So some of the gains that we have with this experience, or that we are aiming to achieve with this experience, and I think that we are also, I think that at this point of time, we're seeing those benefits, is that we're connecting our students with students in another country for a meaningful learning experience. The second is transcending the classroom. Of course, this virtuality, it challenges us to be more innovative with our students, and this is a way to transcend the classroom, not only in virtually in academic perspective, but also personally for them. They are having a different experience and talking with people and engaging in conversation with really interesting questions, because that's another thing that we develop, really interesting and questions that can show their daily basis about power, how they feel about power in the daily basis, for instance, right? The third one is that they have projects that will foster material learning, right? That we want them to really take those materials as personal, and they can learn more through this type of experience, and then apply their knowledge in international scenarios with people with different perspective than they used to have. Right.
All right. So it seems like my part is the pains. It's important to say that these students are really learning from each other. You know, they have had us as their teachers in the classroom, but they have their discussions in groups that are really positive in terms of sharing experiences and applying the concepts and the ideas from the classroom or from the textbooks or the readings to their own lives, and how, these two groups from two different countries and two different realities have been able to talk about you know, similar living realities. Sometimes they have been gone through the same thing, right? Just like COVID has impacted us so much, a lot of these students have been also impacted in similar ways, and so this is very important to say. I asked some of the students in class what would, some of the things that are potentially negative or they are experiencing in terms of the project so far, because it's an ongoing project, and some of the positives. So one student said that the questions we gave them were so good in terms of developing a conversation that they sometimes wanted to continue this conversation, but the time was not on their side, so they were stressed on issues of time. So that was one thing. Also, we also provided them a set of roles that we asked them to select which roles they would perform during these group meetings. And some of the roles were actually good in theory. For example, materials managers, that would have to pick up and distribute and collect and, put away any kind of material. But in reality, on the practical side of that, it didn't work well. So some students who actually got that role didn't have much to do. So we had some roles that ended up being more important than others. So this is something that we are learning for the next, connected classes in the future. So also sometimes a student would be absent from the conversation, and that created sometimes too many students from one university versus the other, and that you have certain groups dominating the conversation because they weren't evenly distributed in terms of the number of students. One aspect that is not necessarily negative, but it is something that we could have done to enhance the experience, one student said, was to have a crossover of professors. So me going to Dr. Gonzalez class online and teach them or talk to them, and she being invited to my class and talking to my students. So what we did, it's just student participation, but we haven't had a chance to get involved with each other's students. A few positive insights that the students gave was about they are really learning about current political events in Colombia, so about the American students, US students, and they can make connections to the political life in the United States. That is very positive for them, especially as the United States transition to a new government, a new administration, so they can see a lot of things that are not just unique to the US, but they are seen also in Colombia. They also pointed out the role of friendship, like how they have had the chance to continue the conversation after the meeting was over, because we set a limit of 30 minutes or to 45 minutes for this meeting, so that we could watch later and not spend our whole day watching these students talking. But after they were done with those, they really continued the conversation. Of course, some groups more than others, but that is important for them. That was important for especially that student. I have some of my own perspective on that so far. I've noticed by watching these videos, some students didn't really get prepared for the conversation, which was, you can see very clearly when they are talking all these the topics that we talked about in class and the questions. They had the readings to do. They had a set of things to get ready for these conversations, and sometimes they didn't. And that is, something that maybe I should next time go through the questions in class so that they will know more what to expect when they get to that group meeting. Also, I've noticed sometimes students dominating the conversation. It's interesting that in both classes, my class and Dr. Gonzalez's class, there's a majority of women or female students. But the few men that were in the class that we have in our classes, in some situations, not in all, but they tend to dominate the conversation. And that is also an issue that can be corrected for the next time. I've noticed also sometimes students with who are struggling more with the language to be more quiet than the ones who are more fluent in English, for example. So there's also a power relationship there that I think it's also important for me as a professor of the U.S. students to point out and say that this relationship has to be on equal footing, right? Some positive insights that I would say is some conversations were really engaging, and it's really joyful to watch and see how we have learned so much from each other. In this exchange that happens, of course, the conversation is somewhat guided by a few questions, but sometimes they just get off topic and they start talking about issues that it's pressing for them at that time, and they share, and it's really a positive thing to see how these connections have been so fruitful in terms of transmitting knowledge from each other, from each group and from each person to one another. And so we are very hopeful that the following assignment that will be about political difference conversation, that will be more like individualized, like instead of group, but two people talking. That will be also very fruitful in the sense that we are expecting them to learn from the perspective, the political orientation or ideological orientation that is opposite from their own, but not in the sense that they want to change the other students' mind, but in the sense that they want to learn why they think the way they think, and what is what's motivating them to think that way. So that's I think that's all I have in terms of pains for now. Thank you so much.
You. Oh my God, now I stopped the screen.
Thank you both. Thanks for sharing this experience. In the case of the experience with Rodrigo, students can healthily debate political issues and points of view. That's very interesting, the result. And in the case of the experience with Dr. Jawad, placing the students to solve global issues and global problems from their disciplines, I think this has a great impact on their learning. Now I have one question for the three of you. What could be the main recommendations that you have for professors that want to develop this type of activity with their students?
I can go. So I think one of the best advices I would give anyone is communication. It is key. Between two professors working on such a project, I think what helped tremendously me and Dr. Gonzalez is that we are actually friends. We have each other's WhatsApp. So that made everything much easier, like planning, communicating, discussing certain situations with certain students. So to me, big thing is communication. Everything was clear. We're very responsive, available for each other. So that helped a lot.
Yeah, I will add to that. Communication is key, but also I will say to be aware that they might think that will go wrong, will go the path that you didn't want to. So you need to be a little flexible with certain things, flexible with some students as well. You need to have some flexibility, you know, for meeting them in some times that maybe you didn't plan to meet, having some extra hours so you can work with them. You know, it needs a lot of prep, but also while you're doing the activity, you also need to be aware that there is some time that maybe you need to be more flexible with some students. So I think flexibility and be aware of that, you know, and knowing that that's part of the process, you know, I think it's a learning curve. So the more you do it, the more you're doing this type of exchange, you know, that you need to have this flexibility, right? And not be so rigorous.
Yeah, I would add just on top of communication and knowing that things will go wrong at some point, I would add a structure. Like be very intentional on be, you know, very clear in providing students everything they need to succeed. Not assume that they will know what you want, but make sure you write it down and put everything in order to, you know, so that they will be guided by the structure you provide, and whatever happens that is extra is just a bonus, right? But at least they will have every single step what to do, and so that you will, at least for your objectives being met, they have to do those steps. Everything else is bonus, but structuring in a way that students get, you know, everything they need on written format, and then, yeah, so that sometimes can happen in the first time, but sometimes you might gonna miss it, and then you rewrite your syllabus and the assignment and get it fixed. But it's very important.
Well, thank you. And we want to thank all of our lecturers today for your participation and invaluable contributions to all of our viewers. I'm sure it was very helpful and inspiring for them as well. And we want to invite you to continue participating in this fifth version of Cátedra Global, and to stay connected for the rest of our cátedra, which will continue with Forum Asia Pacific on the 26th of April, Forum of the Americas on the 13th of May, and Forum on Africa on the 10th of June. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Uninorte Académico, and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Los siguientes contenidos de Uninorte Co te pueden interesar.